Stop.
Hey, stop! Sorry about the slap. I didn't mean to hurt you, just stress. Give me your phone. Call the chopper, I don't want to hear another word about it. He'll be there in 30 minutes, okay?
The monster who started this whole mess is shocked that Rick would go to such extremes, but it was either that or jail, without a doubt. Now, under his instructions, they are staying on the right track, going hunting, cleaning up the mess later, and pretending that nothing just went horribly wrong. A helicopter buzzes in the sky, and the next time we see it, it has landed in the desert. Richard steps out first and opens the door for the blonde goddess, Jen. She carries a duffel bag and heads straight toward the glass house waiting for them. Outside, the pilot, Roberto, reminds Richard that he is available if needed, then hands him a small gift with a sly smile before the two men part ways. Inside, Jen waits seductively in the bedroom, while her partner lingers by the door, taking a moment to look at her. They meet in the middle, and he quickly pulls her close, enjoying the moment. Grabbing her lush curls, he makes it clear that she holds the reins, so she strips off his clothes, kneels down, and, in effect, takes the wheel. He has a clueless wife back home, stressing over the menu details for a communion while believing he is away on a business trip. When the call ends, he slides into bed next to Jen. She is in a bad mood and he wishes things weren't so complicated, but fate just had to give him kids and make Jen too irresistible, a compliment she gladly accepts before beginning to kiss him. In the morning, she pours herself a glass of water and takes an apple, but when she turns around, the glass slips from her hand in surprise. Behind the tinted panel is a guy with a gun, staring intently. Another one appears and the blonde calmly calls out to her host. They walk in with a flurry of complaints, but the tension eases just as quickly when their attention shifts to the stranger. Richard reluctantly introduces her as a friend and insists she won't be staying long, 2 days at most. When she gives them privacy, one guy mockingly asks about his Elizabeth and the kids. While the Casanova basically responds that they weren't supposed to see his cheat sheet, everyone settles in. Jen, with her cute backside, radiates summer vibes and is ready to have the time of her life. There is sun, a pool, wine, cable TV, cigarettes, and plenty of room for laughter. At sunset, she tells Stan about her dream of moving to Los Angeles, saying she wants to be noticed, while Dimitri watches her through a pair of binoculars like a stalker. Richard joins the table, and soon attention turns to the gift the pilot handed over earlier. It is peyote, and he warns that it is dangerous when Jen asks for some, but the other guys don't mind playing with fire. Even so, he makes them understand that the magic toy is so powerful, it could make you compromise yourself. He hands it over to his girl to keep it safe from the boys. Inside, she decides the best place to hide it is in the locket she is wearing. Then she turns on the music and goes outside to put on a show. But since Rick insists on being a party pooper and turns down a dance, her next target is Stan, who gladly accepts. She begins to rub against him, swaying from left to right, leaving the other two men as spectators. When her married boyfriend decides playtime is over, he lifts her over his shoulder, making her laugh, while his dancing partner grunts. In the morning, her partner is not in bed. She goes out to the patio and finds Stan thrilled by her company, inviting her to have dinner with him. The night before, she spoke about wanting to be noticed, but Stan's glances would make anyone change their mind. Dimitri floats nearby with his face covered by a magazine, and his friend explains it's a terrible hangover, adding that dear Richard went out on an errand, something about passports. After failing to distract herself with her phone, she announces she is going to pack and leaves in a hurry, leaving him with breakfast. She is undressed when Stan sneaks a peek at her from the corner, and she jumps, trying to cover herself the moment she notices him, which prompts him to apologize. Still, he steps closer, wanting to keep the connection, hands her his card, and suggests they find time to have fun together. But the second she says she isn't sure, that work might call her, he scoffs and exposes her lie. With every question, he dismisses her. He becomes passive-aggressive, as he doesn't like being rejected. He brings up the night before, insisting things were different between them, but now she is acting weird. She backs away to put distance between them, but he won't allow it, pressing himself against her back and cornering her when she tries to run. She moves to stop him, but he is no gentleman. Dimitri bursts in with a bag of food, sees her crying, but decides to get the hell out after Stan gives him the choice to join them or stay out. He closes the door and leaves his friend to make her scream in agony. Then, as if to drown out the noise, he turns on the TV and goes for a swim while Jen bangs on the window. When Richard returns, he immediately senses something is wrong. His friends are on the couch and the brute stands up to confess his crimes. Shocked, Rick runs to the bedroom and finds his girl trembling. She wants to be miles away from the scene and begs him to call the helicopter amid his apologies and promises to fix things. Outside, he yells at Stan for being an idiot. When she wakes up later, she suddenly has a job in Canada and a massive sum of money to start over. Her boyfriend is right in her face, thinking he has fixed everything, saying it's the same as Los Angeles, but she just wants that damn helicopter so she can go home. He changes his strategy, placing the blame on her beauty and acting as if a slap on the wrist will fix it. Jen threatens to tell his wife, only to end up on the floor, dazed by a slap.
Stop! He'll be there in 30 minutes.
He begins to burn her things while his friends prepare their ammunition. Later, he calls his lovely wife to reassure her, praising her organizational skills and telling her he loves her and will be home soon. Stan comes to apologize to Jen, but he has also burned her keepsake. The poor girl is still hanging from the branch, dripping blood and covered in ants, but she isn't dead yet. With blood pooling in her mouth, she gasps back into consciousness. Movement is not easy. Bones and flesh crunch in protest, and the vital fluid escapes her mouth. Her surroundings slowly clear up. The sky, the desert rocks, her MP3 player, and a lighter just within arm's reach. Using the headphone cord, she reels the lighter in, picks it up, and sets a dry bush on fire with the last flame. The heat intensifies as the fire licks upward, but the roots snap before she becomes a crispy creature, freeing her from the impalement. There is no time to rest. The troops arrive on motorcycles and an SUV, marching toward the cliff to finish the job. Jen moves and begins to crawl away from the scene. The log is still lodged in her belly, and her legs don't work, but she manages to conceal herself just in time. From her hiding spot, she listens as the trio finds nothing but ashes and no corpse. Stan suddenly shifts to empathy, thinking that maybe they can save her if someone else hasn't found her first. But Richard wants no part of that. He prefers that Stan flip the compassion switch off and get back to the hunt. They retreat to their vehicles, and only then does she sigh in relief. Night falls, and the men have navigated to the bottom of the cliff. They find the burnt log and the forgotten MP3 player. With a flashlight, Richard finds blood stains, first against the rock and then forming a trail for them to follow, assuring him they will find her soon. The search begins, a long trail of blood that starts out thin, gets thick, then thins out again, and finally stops. Before them is a body of water. The flashlights reveal nothing. It's time to split up. Dimitri and the killer head in opposite directions. They head out on the bikes while he stays right in the center with the SUV, high beams blasting. Instead of standing around, he climbs into the car with his rifle and refreshes himself, buckling his seatbelt just to silence the reminder alarm. Meanwhile, Jen pushes through the water. Her ears, sharp as the sound of motorcycles, cuts through the night. Drenched and desperate, she picks up the pace. Dimitri drives right past but doesn't see her because she is underwater, surfacing only when he is gone. Soon she is back on land, finding shelter behind a mound of sand. Curiously, right behind the silent one, who has stopped to pee, his rifle just a stone's throw away. With all the stealth she can muster, she limps toward the rifle and manages to snatch it just in time, forcing him to spin around and beg. She pulls the trigger, but it's empty, and in the blink of an eye, he regains control and shoves her down. Now he can talk, shouting over a kick to her face that she is foolish enough to think he'd leave a loaded gun lying around. He tells the brute he has her, and will deal with her himself. Stan feels the mood lighten, less tense now, as Jen's summer song plays from her forgotten MP3 player. Meanwhile, Dimitri is busy trying to drown her, the plan being to drag things out and torture her first. But she manages to strip him of his knife, and the next time he shoves her head underwater, she drives it into him. The The second stab sinks into his shoulder, and the last one goes straight through his eye. He thrashes and screams, but it doesn't last long. Once he goes ice cold, she shakily pulls out the blade and lets the body float beneath the water. Now, his bike and backpack are hers, but the fuel runs out. And she is forced to continue on foot. She makes her way to a cave and lights a fire with her trusty lighter before emptying the contents of the backpack. Just a few supplies, including a flashlight and a can of drink. She downs the drink in one gulp, then tries to assess the wound. But even taking off her shirt is pure agony. Defeated, she collapses on the floor crying. Then, she remembers the locket and pulls out the peyote. It tastes awful, and she spits it into the sand before scooping it back up and forcing it down her throat. As the effects begin to kick in, she grabs the rifle and preps the weapon. Soon, dramatic music rises, maybe in her head, maybe not, leaving her on edge, hands clamped over her ears. A loud voice screams out for murder, sending a surge of energy through her. She opens the can with the blade, spreading it flat like a map, then sterilizes the blade and cuts through the soft tissue to give the chunk of wood more room to be extracted. Once she pulls it out, blood spurts out, but that's what the cut-up can is for. Red hot from the heat of the flames, she cauterizes the gaping hole without feeling a single shred of pain, though she ends up passing out. Stan sleeps in his car until dawn, awakened by Richard slamming a bloody kill against the windshield. Rick thinks about reaching out to Dimitri, assuming he went hunting too. Stan gets out and stretches, then heads to the lake to relieve himself, needlessly drowning a harmless spider in yellow liquid. He is washing his face and dirty parts when his friend's body surfaces. The next thing he knows, he is in the water, screaming in shock before swimming away from the corpse. He vomits by the car while Rick watches, expressionless. Inside the car, he screams and punches the air in frustration, the kill's blood covering half the visor. He finally decides to drag the corpse out after staring at it long enough, while the other guy talks to himself, trying to comprehend how everything went so wrong. With every heavy breath, the wiper smears the blood across the glass, and the AC fogs it up just enough to melt and clear it. Poker Face drags the corpse to shore and comes to knock on the window. When Stan rolls it down, he is told to turn on the AC. Too eco-unfriendly for Rick's taste. Besides, his help is needed with the body. He storms out to play the blame game, but Jen's ex isn't having it. Together, they dump Dimitri's body back into the water. The story will be that the dead guy got careless while hunting, despite his friend's warnings. Just when it seems everything is sorted and done, Richard throws a punch at Stan, and the guy collapses, whining about a broken, bloody nose. The attacker then hops on his bike and begins to ride away, leaving Stan to wail and keep the car. Both vehicles push through the desert with purpose while Jen remains in the cave. She wakes up with a start to find that the Can't design has branded her. She now has a makeshift tattoo of an eagle with the word beer scribbled above it. She gathers her ammo and heads for the exit, when that psycho blocks her view with his own rifle and blows her head off in a second dream. It's night when she wakes up with a start, sees the brand, and grabs the ammo. Richard appears again, firing. Then another dream unfolds, this time Dimitri's corpse followed by a distorted Stan questioning her. Hallucinations flood her, memories mixing with horror. She bolts out of the cave and just keeps running. A golden eagle appears, pure madness, until she wakes up with a start again, for what seems to be the final time. She belts up to hold the knife and extra gear before stepping out of the cave. From pageant beauty to warrior princess, her body is streaked with dried blood and dirt alike. Her hair has gone from golden blonde to ash-colored from the grime, and she is left in nothing but her underwear. She pulls out the binoculars and scans her surroundings, but there is nothing for miles. Stan is also scanning and finding nothing. They found the abandoned bike and know she is on foot. A livid Richard wants a map, fast. Stan gets his wish, and they start plotting strategy. One person will head east, while the other goes west. The idea is to check every nook and cranny until they find her, but the one with the broken nose isn't sure, insisting they should stick together like they would in a forest, citing the strength of the pair. As far as Poker Face is concerned, this is no forest, so they better get moving. He hops on his bike, leaving the brute with the car. On the flip side, Jen spots a flash of light and stays locked in. It's Stan using a mirror and reflecting the light in the process. She watches him get in the car and drive off, her expression unreadable. She begins to close in with a rifle as he cruises through the desert hills. The car beeps for low fuel and pulls over. He steps out to access the trunk. Inside is a jerry can, which he takes to the gas tank to fill it up. Jen hides behind a rock and readies the rifle. She has several clean shots and plenty of time while he fills the tank, but she hesitates, shifting between angles. The longer she looks at him, the more he resembles a lizard from one of her hallucinations. Finally, she fires, hitting only his shoulder blade. The recoil sends her to the ground, her ears ringing. By the time she regains her footing, he is nowhere in sight, and she is left searching frantically, her grip far from steady. She moves even closer, but there is still no sign of him, only the abandoned car and the splash of blood from where he was shot. The front hood has a handprint, and further ahead is a trail of vital fluid. Stan limps along, his clothes soaked and his eyes wide. He throws several glances back, as if expecting her to pop out of nowhere, and maybe she will because she hasn't veered off his trail yet. At some point, he strips off a shoe and uses the sock to gauge the bleeding on his shoulder. She finds the discarded shoe and keeps moving. She has no idea Stan has the upper hand, perched like an eagle on a hill while she wanders below. He readies the weapon, but his shoulder proves to be a hindrance, making him grunt. With shaky hands, he fires, and the bullet clips a piece of her ear, making her cry out. With her ears ringing from what's left, she scrambles to her feet and recovers her weapon, hurrying along. The shots that follow are muffled, but none hit her, even as he tracks her from behind. To slow him down, she smashes the flashlight against a rock, leaving shards of glass behind. He falls right into the trap. A shard carves a canyon-sized gash into the sole of his foot. He tries to pull the shard out, but it's deeply embedded. Every movement drains more of his river of rubies and sends waves of pain through him. At one point, he wipes his face in frustration, smearing it with blood. Panting and cradling his foot, he tries again with pure grit, holding back the screams. When he finally pulls the tiny piece out, the victory makes him laugh before he spikes it into the ground like a touchdown. The leg is pretty much useless, but he still makes it to the car and tosses the weapon to a corner. The car needs a kickstart, as the key alone won't cut it. He forces himself to slam the gas pedal, even though that's the bad foot, and it hurts like crazy. The engine roars, and now both he and the vehicle are running on adrenaline as he speeds off, screaming with joy. Jen is in his path, exhausted from all the running. She takes a stance and times it. As he comes barreling down like a runaway menace, she fires. Once, twice, and she misses. It looks like she's about to get run over when the next round is a bullseye, and she ducks just as the SUV skids before coming to a halt. When she opens the door, the corpse falls out. Richard is on the walkie-talkie, trying to reach Stan. She speeds away as the last man standing makes his way back to base. Completely alone, he sits by his bike and waits, still calling out to his friend. At some point, it must have hit him that he is done for, and he begins to scream in frustration, kicking the sand. Then he decides to put his helmet on and hop back on his bike. The sun has dipped, but he keeps moving in circles. Then morning comes, and he is back at his property. He dives headfirst into the pool before collapsing on the deck, coughing. Inside, he takes a breather on the couch. Ever calculating, he calls Roberto and lies that the others had pressing matters, so he dropped them off at the airport, cutting their hunting fun short. Now, he needs the aviator and that chopper to come pick him up, and Roberto says he'll be there in half an hour. He is a mess of dirt and thoughts, starting to strip off his gear, but keeping his weapon right by his side. Like a zombie, he shuffles into the bathroom and lets the water run. A sudden sound cuts through the shower moment, but the gun is with him, so he aims at the door, firmly waiting for the intruder. Seeing no one forcing their way in, he goes looking on high alert, not caring that he is in his birthday suit. After checking the whole house, he steps out to the patio and finally lets his guard down. There is a toy car in the pool, which he fishes out before walking the pool edge, still pretty vigilant, finding nothing. He goes back to his living quarters and settles onto the couch, but only for a second, because the TV suddenly turns on with an ad. Jen appears much like Stan once did, right behind the tinted painting, silent. But she is armed, blood boiling, while Richard just stares at her, as if wondering if she is really going to do it. He begins to speak, but she answers with a shot that sends him flying, guts spilling from his side. She fires more rounds, though it's unclear if they connect. There is no room on his end, so she pops up whenever he peeks from behind the couch, forcing him to take cover and reload. A shot from her grazes his already open wound, and he grunts in pain. Her eyes watch from behind a deck chair. The TV blares while he crawls across his once luxurious carpet. He crawls into the inner hallway, and she steps out of her hiding spot to follow the trail and finish him off. Somehow he manages to loop all the way around, and the trail leads back to the terrace. She has no idea he is at the corner of the wall, waiting intently for movement from the terrace, completely drenched but standing and aiming. If she moves an inch further, she'll have the muzzle to her head for a swift ending. It's a waiting game, and she almost loses, about to step forward. As a new current flows from the corner, he is on his feet. Knowing better now, she steps back quietly, hurrying to the opposite side of the corner to get behind his back for the first and final shot. When he fails to show up, she begins to round the corner, maneuvering through the slippery pool right at the moment she should have been at his back, only to find the spot empty. She has the upper hand, though, as he is weak and hurting, leaning against the wall to keep moving. A noise distracts her, and she isn't sure which way to turn. On the other side, he fumbles through the kitchen wrap until he finds a binding to hold his wound together. Back to the waiting game, until she bravely rushes the position, forcing him to duck and retreat. He fires his own bullets, but soon runs empty. It's like cat and mouse in a maze until Jen slips and falls, losing her grip on her weapon. She can't recover in time, and he finds her, knocking her cold. She regains consciousness quickly and fights for her weapon again, but he grabs her by the leg and soon has her in a chokehold, grunting as he delivers one of those long speeches that give the opponent time to think and make a better move. In this case, she smacks his wound, causing him to lose his grip and allowing her to recover her gun. He lunges just in time for her to fire, and the second she does, the game is over. Finally, she stands up and walks right past his corpse. Outside on the terrace, she can hear the helicopter approaching.